want to thank all of you for your time tonight. Thank you for your patience as we scrambled to get another room up and meeting. But most of all, thank you very much for saying yes to Tri Delta in this assignment. Those of you who are new to the committee, I hope you'll enjoy it as much as the rest of us who have served for a couple of years. It is one of my favorite assignments within Tri Delta because it's a couple of reasons. It's nice and concentrated in terms of the work of the committee is over a couple of months. It's flexible in the time. You can do it on your own time and when it works for you. And best of all, you get to read about all our amazing collegiate women, and it's just so much fun to see. And I'm always impressed every year with our nominees and all the activities and the ways they balance all they do in Tri Delta and in their community. So for the sake of time, I thought we'd just do real quick introductions tonight and share at least your name and which college or university you attended and where you live now. And so Bernie, since you're on the phone, I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, I'm Bernie Amberg, and I went to Minnesota State University at Mankato, Minnesota. And currently I live in Excelsior, Minnesota.
All right, thank you. And I'll just go in order. Kim?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Sanger, and I went to Simpson College in Indianola, Iowa. And right now I live in the Denver area.
Great, thank you. Leah?
Hey, y'all. Good evening. I'm Leah Yarborough, and I went to Wofford College in South Carolina, and I am from Atlanta and live in Atlanta, hence the y'all. And that's what I got. Happy to be here.
Great, thank you, Leah. Holly?
Hi, I'm Holly. I was initiated at the University of Iowa, and I currently live in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Great.
Go Hawks.
Yeah, go Hawks.
Adrian?
Hi, I'm Adrienne Bohannon. I went to Wake Forest University and I currently live in Seattle.
Well, thank you, Adrian. And for those I haven't met yet, of course, I'm Kim Dowd. I went to Arizona State University and I currently live in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh.
So thank you all for introductions. We're going to move right into the process, and I'll give you kind of just a brief verbal overview of how things work. I am going to go ahead and share our screen share my screen with our agenda because the dates are at the bottom and those may be helpful to see as we're talking about this. But within the next couple of weeks, by December 17th, we should have all the applications in from the nominees who completed applications. Lexi will gather all of that information for us at executive office. She'll send me the information and I'm going to put it into a spreadsheet, which I'll share with you in a little while. But then we'll have about a month for each of us to read and score probably between 15 and 18 applications. We don't know the definitive number until the deadline passes, which is December 15th. But it should be somewhere in that neighborhood. There are two members of the committee who read each application. So each application is scored by at least two members of the committee. We'll go through Smarter Select in a minute. I'll show you how that is done. Like I said, we have till about January 17th to do that. After that process, we'll come back together on a call as a committee and we'll select the finalists. And that is to determine which women we will interview. Most years that I've been involved, I've been doing on the committee the last 3 years, and there seems to typically be kind of a natural break off in terms of scores where the top 5 to 10 women, typically there are about 5 to 10 finalists. Last year we had 8, the year before we had 5, and we'll kind of just take it where that natural score breaks off. We do, however, meet as a group because sometimes scoring isn't everything. And each of us has an opportunity to make a case for someone who may not be in those top 8 or 5 to 10, but you really think should be taken another look at and be considered to be a finalist. So we'll have some discussion about that. Once we determine who the finalists are, we'll schedule interviews. Those are done over Zoom, or typically have been done in the past over Zoom. 2 years ago, we did them with cameras on. I think every year prior to that, since they've been doing Zoom, we've done them on camera. Last year, we did them for the first time off camera. We felt like that was a fair process and we weren't judging anything based on appearance. But we'll decide that as a group, and we get to that planning stage in January after we do all the scoring. The way the interviews work is 3 members of the committee will interview each finalist, and these are 3 members who did not score her application. So that way we have at least half of the committee who has an interaction either on paper or through their application or personally through the interview, who provide feedback on each applicant or each finalist at least. Once the interviews are conducted, then we will look at that scoring. If there's a nice natural breakdown to where the winner and then the first, second, third runners up and maybe some high honors or honorable mentions down that way. If it falls cleanly, then we just consider that those are results and our recommendations to the executive board. If there are some ties within those points, then we will figure out tiebreakers. One thing we've done in the past that I think worked well, based on our reports, is we had 2 or 3 people who had not read the application and who had not interviewed the tie-breaking candidates, had them evaluate both candidates' applications, and then we factored those scores in to do that tiebreaker. So that's one way that we can look at that. Once we select the winner and the runners-up, the honorable mentions, we as a group delegate some of us or whoever volunteers to write up kind of their biographies to share with the executive board so that they don't have to read through all the applications and all the scoring. They get kind of a summary and each applicant or each finalist score so they can make an informed decision. And after that, we are completed. We'll meet once again, probably late in the spring, just to do we can do it, we may choose to do it by Zoom or we may choose to do it through email, whatever works best for folks, but kind of a wrap-up meeting so that we can, anything we learned this year that we want to make improvements upon for the next year, we'll do that while it's fresh in our minds, and then our term will come to a close. Those of you serving on the committee for your first time, just so you're aware, this is a 1-year commitment. So you are only committed to participating in the Sarah Shaw Award Committee this year. You can repeat if you choose to, and it is by your choice. If you choose to repeat to continue the next year, you can serve up to 3 consecutive terms in a row. So that's kind of how the process works. I'm going to stop sharing that screen. And before I go into what I'd like to do next is go into Smarter Select and just do a quick kind of overview. Before I do that, just to give me an idea of how much time to spend on that, has everyone had an experience with Smarter Select, or is it new for anyone?
Well, this is Bernie and I've had an experience with it.
Okay.
I have not, but I know we have limited time, so I'm happy to do like an off session with you, Kim, to kind of walk through it if needed. So we can get through, everything if you want to do high level, and then I can go with you afterwards as well.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, let me just kind of, sorry. Oh, Adrian.
This is Adrian. I also do a more with.
You're fading in and out, unfortunately. Will you try one more time, please? Adrian, are you still there?
You.
We unfortunately can't hear you real clearly, Adrian, but we'll definitely swing back with you later and
Maybe try the chat.
yeah, or you can post in the chat. Good call, Kim. All right, let me and of course I had that up and closed it when we were trying to get on. Sorry, bear with me just a moment while I pull up Smarter Select.
Adrian said in the chat she hasn't used it either, but can also connect with you later because I know she's driving as well.
Okay. Sounds good. Let me just sorry, an old computer too. All right, we're gonna flip over that. We're gonna skip over that for the time being, and Leah, you can stay. Hopefully, I can circle back to it with everybody, so you can at least see it and become familiar with it. But I'll also spend more time with you, Leah, and Adrian. We can jump on another call to do that as well. the next thing I'm going to share is the spreadsheet on which through which you'll receive your assignments, what applicants you'll be scoring. Okay. And this cannot take credit for it. Kelly Barton, who is a member of our committee, rotated off the committee last year, made this wonderful spreadsheet, and it's really helpful for tracking who you're assigned to. So this is what the information will look like when you receive it. And you'll just scroll down and you can see like each of these applicants here. These are the names of the reviewers who will review each one. And then there's some columns for things that are asked on the application: GPA, major, year in school, and then the scoring for each question. In a nutshell, I think there are 4 essay questions each applicant completes, and then 4 recommendations that are submitted on her behalf. And so the scoring goes from 0 to 7. So for each question, this is an opportunity for you to track your scores and add them here into the spreadsheet. You do not have to use that. This is completely optional. Everyone will find their own system that works for them. Some people I know in the past like to print out all the applications that they're reviewing. They like the paper of it. Some prefer to do it online. There will be options in Smarter Select for you to make notes as well. And I would say, even if you don't use this tool at all, I would encourage you to make some general notes about why you scored each applicant the way you did, specifically on the essay questions. Because that way, when we go back and we have our call after all the scoring has been done, we determine who the finalists are, you'll be able to say, oh, this is why I gave her a 7, or this is why I gave this candidate a 3. You never know what question you may have to go back, and they can start to sound very similar if you sit and read them over and over again, or read too many at one time. That all sounds can get jumbled. So we just encourage you to find what system works for you. We'll give you this tool if it works for you, great. And if not, you'll find one, like I said, it's completely optional. You do not need to have to use it. Good versus great responses. What's a 7 versus what's a 5 versus what is a 3? Those of you who are returning kind of veteran members of the committee, would you love to hear from you guys about your thoughts and how you evaluate, or any recommendations you have, or what makes a great answer versus a good answer versus an average answer?
I'm trying to remember the exact questions, because I was also on the Foundation Scholarships Committee, so I'm kind of, I think, mixing up questions of what I had to evaluate in this and what I had to evaluate for the scholarship committee, like on some of those more kind of subjective scoring areas.
Yes, there are questions about their activity on campus, how they have been, how they've exhibited our brave, bold, and kind of standards. There's one of the essay questions simulates truth, self-sacrifice, and friendship to their overall growth in college. I actually the link just popped up, so let me go back and share this Smarter Select, and we'll do a quick overview for everyone anyway, because if you're like me, I had not looked at it in a year. So it'll be good for us to refamiliarize ourselves with this, those of us who are returning. So this is what Smarter Select will look like when you log in. And Lexi added all the new committee members to Smarter Select today. You should have an email invitation to start to create your account. If you haven't done that, please go ahead and do that when we sign off, and let me know if you have any issues, okay? And returners, I would encourage you to log on as well, and just make sure that your access hasn't been affected either. So this is what it'll look like. You'll log down if you have multiple years. There's only one sample candidate in here right now. You can read it, you can print it, or you can see the info that the directions that are given to, this is what this looks like, is the directions that were given to the candidates for how to complete the application. And then if you click read to open it up, my ancient laptop may take a moment. Okay, here we go. And of course, you'll note that your information is here. I've never seen it pop up with anybody else's, but certainly before you start evaluating, you want to just make sure that you're evaluating under your name. And then the applicant's information will be provided next, her GPA, her academic classification, her expected graduation date, major, minor if she has one. And then there are 3 narrative questions. And again, this is describe a situation, you exemplify the qualities of truth, self-sacrifice, and friendship as a non-chapter member, non-officer, committee member, as a chapter officer, or as a Panhellenic or Green Campus leader. You can expand these boxes to read her full response. And then this is your scoring for that first question, okay? It is not working on here right now, but usually if you click anywhere on this blue box, a rubric will pop up, and I'll show you as I scroll down a little bit further, and it'll give you some hints for what constitutes a 1 versus a 7 and so on. And then the second question, describe a time when you were challenged to grow. Oh, there's a typo there. Challenged to grow and develop in your academic or extracurricular pursuits. Again, this is a way for them to share what they've been involved in, the leadership experiences, but also to assimilate it to their growth. And you'll score that question again. And then the third is about being kind of like to all, an example of that. You can see her essay, her response, and then you'll score that third question. And then the last question, again, give a specific example of how you've demonstrated self-reverence, self-knowledge, and self-control in your life. How has this allowed you to develop a stronger character and to assist others? Why is this important to you? Returners to the committee, you'll see that these questions are a little bit different based on the response that we gave last year. They've been updated a little bit with recommendations, so they are a little bit different, but I think pretty comprehensive to give an applicant a wide berth to tell us a lot about her, but also to relate it to TriDelta as well. And then here's your area for notes. If you want to take your notes in the application, you can do that. These will only be viewed by you. They're your internal notes for you to refer to if you need to go back to it anytime. Then there are 4 recommendations that are submitted on behalf of an applicant. One is a chapter member, and that's an actual letter that will either be linked here or here where you can download and then read it. There's a chapter advisor recommendation, and those are given specific questions to answer about whether they recommend highly someone or do not recommend, rating their overall performance as a member, and then some narrative comments as well, standards of conduct, leadership skills, and they fill those out specifically. And then the regional volunteer recommendation is similar in terms of the questions that it asks. It's a little not quite as extensive as a chapter advisor, since those advisors typically know the collegians better. And then the college, university, faculty, or staff member recommendation is another letter. So this is the introduction that is provided, and then they link their letter here. It's downloaded here. And then at the end of those recommendations, here's how the rubrics pops up. So you can see it's not going to stay because my laptop is not, well, that's not too bad. It's actually staying there now, but that'll give you an idea of if you're not sure if it's a 1 or a 3 or a 5, you can go back and check these real quickly and see which kind of basket it most appropriately fits in. So you will rate those 4 recommendations, and then you'll stop right here where it starts the phone interview scores, because 3 other members of the committee are the ones who are going to be completing those, okay? For if she becomes a finalist. Any questions on those, or returning members now having seen that? Does it bring to mind any other recommendations or feedback?
Is there a save button at the bottom, or does it save as it goes?
It saves as it goes.
Okay.
You don't
Thank
want,
you.
what you don't want to do, well, I guess that's a great question. You can save and, thank you, Leah, save and finish later. You can submit it. What I like to do is read through it one time and score it. And then I save it for later, and then I might come back and skim it again and check my scores, because sometimes after I've read my 15, I kind of think of which ones I think are maybe the top 3 to top 5, and I want to make sure that those are the scores, that their scores reflect that. So once you submit it, you cannot change your scores, but you can also save and finish later. Great question. Thank you, Leah. Anything else, veterans, to share, or any other questions?
I would just
Just
think of it like
sorry.
I would just think of it like a job interview, giving specific values, like the STAR method of interviewing. So specifics are always good. And then I agree with Kim. I think you should kind of read all of them and then reevaluate your scores.
Good, thanks, Holly. Kim, did you have something you want to share?
Oh, just the rubrics are really helpful on each, to kind of figure out. And it seems like the very top ones, especially as you are getting into reading them, really do kind of pop out. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, after you read a few, you'll kind of have an idea of what you'll be better able to describe what a great answer is versus a good versus an average. It just takes being
Is the rubric a separate document, or is that part of Smart Select?
It's that great question, Bernie. It's actually right in Smart Select.
Okay.
After each essay question, there is a blue box with your scores in it. When you hover your mouse over those, the rubric pops up.
Okay.
And then the evaluations for each individual question she answers come immediately following each question. And then the recommendations or the scoring on the letters of recommendation from the advisors, chapter member, etc., are all scored together at the bottom of those.
Okay.
Okay. The first year I served on the committee, I really stewed, especially up in the essay questions, about is this a 5 or is this a 7? Like, gosh, I think it's close, but I can't, seems like I was splitting hairs to try to figure out if it was a 5 or 7. And what I would say to you is what somebody said to me the next year is, don't worry too much about it, because there are multiple eyes on every application. Your scoring is not in and of itself going to be the one that makes her a finalist or does not. So it's great to be thoughtful about it. We appreciate the thoughtfulness you put into it and the time you take to do it, but don't get yourself all riled up as I did about trying to figure out if it's a 5 or a 7 or a 3 or 5.
That's helpful.
So within this, the next question, Kim, not to jump too far ahead, but just kind of natural flow, since you're on a recommendation right now. If we don't have one, what do we do when we don't have a recommendation? Since you've kind of teed it up and you're right there, I figured I'd ask. What do we do?
Yes, thank you. Great question. We did add zeros this year. The returning members, you'll notice that difference as well. Keep going to the phone ones, but anyway, if a recommendation is not included, you'll treat that as a 0. I had a nominee last year, an applicant who, I don't know, either intentionally or unintentionally had this exact same answer to 2 of her essay questions. And so I was like, oh, what do I do with that? So I gave her credit for 1 question and obviously didn't give her any credit for the second question. Every year, it seems like there are a few applicants who are late. I'm interested in your feedback. I'm a pretty stickler about meeting the deadline, especially since they've been given 6 or 8 weeks, I think, from the time that they were nominated to complete the application. So I'm leaning toward we should not grant any extensions. However, there may be situations that merit one. I think last year, Luann was contacted by an applicant who was in the hospital and needed a little extra time to get her application completed. We granted that extension, of course. So you may come across some application or in the applications you're supposed to review that will say pending or in progress. And let me know if you come across those. Typically, those are some that are late and just did not get it completed in time, in which case you won't need to read and evaluate, unless it's a special situation, in which case I will let you know specifically.
On the situation of a recommendation that is done by any of the 4 people, if those are late, is it the candidate's responsibility to make sure they're into the application? Or does that person who is writing the recommendation send it directly to the to the process? I don't know how that works exactly. Does
That's,
that make sense?
it does make sense. And I don't know exactly, my sense is that the link for the recommendation is provided by the collegian to the recommender. And then the recommender is supposed to go in there and either answer the questions or attach a letter of recommendation. Obviously, it is ultimately the applicant's responsibility to make sure her recommenders complete their letters or answer their questions. Just as it would be in any kind of job interview. The buck stops there. It's unfortunate for an applicant if one of her recommenders does not complete that process, because it really will affect her overall score significantly.
Yeah.
I can speak to that. I was a CDO, and so I've been on the receiving end of doing these recommendations for a couple of my chapters for their nominees. And you do get a link and you fill it out. And the ones that I had 2 chapters request me to be the regional person, and one did not get great ratings and did not follow up with me to ask me if I had done it. And the one who did was the one that got high ratings. So she did follow up and say, I just wanted to make sure that you have done it. And I said, with pleasure. And the other one who didn't asked me if I had sent it in, was not the one that got great ratings. So you do get a link and it does go in. So it is the recommender's responsibility to send it in, but it is also on the applicants to follow up with whom they have asked to do it.
Good deal. Thank you, Leah.
Yep.
Good question. All right, so we took care of what's to do if a recommendation is missing, the response is incomplete or redundant, submitted later. Are there any other returners? Are there any other scenarios that you faced last year that we haven't covered?
I did get one that was a video. It was a link to a Google Drive video.
Oh,
Yeah, but that was just, I just got one and I just filled it out as I would normally. She just had kind of, I think to all of her essays, she had about a 6 to a 20-minute video. So it was a little long, but.
Thank you for taking the time to score that.
Is that something that we have addressed in wanting a written essay so that we don't have multimedia, or is that something that we have considered for, like, if we have a sister who speaks, ASL or would need to do a video, who would be a contributing sister who would be nominated for ADA purposes?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I'd have to check with Lexi about what that scenario was and what the condition was. I can see it being helpful and probably something if we did not offer it this year. I think we're kind of behind the candidates part of the application was due December 1st. The recommenders are due by December 15th. So since we're past the deadline for this year, that's certainly something I'll make a note for us to discuss in the spring. Because I think it is appropriate, and personally, I think it's appropriate to offer that to members, collegians who, have different abilities, and maybe that is the best way for someone to represent.
Neurodiverse or dyslexic.
Exactly. Yep.
This is Adrian. I agree. I think for equity and accessibility, that's definitely something we need to keep in mind for the future.
well, and some people are really good writers. Some people are very articulate. And often they don't go together perfectly.
Yeah.
So I think it is really beneficial and fair to judge each as we get them.
Good points all the way around.
I think on that note, I think we'll discuss it later, Kim, but my initial thought on having video versus not having video, as this is our most prestigious award, I do think that there is something about the essence of presenting yourself in the community and within your chapter and if we are the premier women's organization, that it is important how you present yourself to a committee of your sisters, which shouldn't be overly intimidating, because we're still your sisters if you've already been nominated. So I'm pro video. I don't think we're taking a vote tonight in Robert's Rules of Order, but to me, that seems like we were selected by our sisters as people who have the ability to have a high sense of confidentiality, to be a diverse group, and to think of the best candidate and not to have a bias, with or without a video, which is why we're here. But I do think you can learn a lot about it as we're talking about video. That's why I'm bringing it up, about their demeanor, how they're coming across, those kinds of things. And I think sometimes your personality, to the thing about maybe they weren't a strong writer, but they do present very well. And they might have more of a presence than they would on a phone. That's my 2 cents in
Yeah.
the 4 minutes that we have left.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Valid points for sure.
And that'll definitely come into play with the interviews too.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Instead of doing, I think it feels very impersonal to not have a face that you're talking to.
Yeah, I get that.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I don't remember. I don't think we showed our screens either on those.
We didn't.
Yeah, but yeah, especially, and today as we're all having to do, this, and like you said before, it is almost like a job interview too. But I agree with you on that, Leah, that I think it would be good to have us be able to see each other.
And it's a good experience, I think, for the finalists to go through we're probably not their first Zoom interview, but to have that experience as they, go out into the world, and probably have
And
another.
if they all went through recruitment, like we can't be scarier than like the great unknown of recruitment, right? Like you're already in, like this is the highest honor. Even I'll stop jibber jabber, but I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for letting me be a part. I'm very excited about the opportunity. So thank you.
No, no need to hold back. I appreciate your input and your enthusiasm, and we've raised some great points. So not at all. Keep sharing. Just to give you a little bit of history, as I remember it anyway, and I'll go back with Luann, make sure that I remember it correctly, and Kim and Holly can tell me if I'm not, but one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons we went to the blind camera off interviews was for our own personal biases, so that we did not view a member who maybe is more diverse than we are, or maybe who is neurodiverse, or ethnically, racial, whatever. That takes all of those, it strips us of our biases when we cannot look at someone and judge her based on her appearance. So that's I share that just to let you know kind of what we're balancing is we did not make that decision because we were intimidating to them. We made it so that our feedback was more was not based on appearance, based on experience and what she said, more so than how she presented herself. But there's certainly valuable points on either side, and we'll determine that when we meet after we do the scoring. So, but all good points. All right. Sure. Any other questions? I know we've gone through fast, but I feel like they're going to cut us off in a minute. So
yeah, we have a minute 55 left.
A minute 55. Oh, thank you, Leah. I love you. You're keeping right on track. You can be the timekeeper. And certainly let me make sure in the last 155 to say that questions will arise as you start scoring, even returning members. I know I had several questions for our chair last year and for Lexi as well. Lexi and I are here for you throughout the whole process. This is not the only time you have an opportunity to ask us questions. As things arise, just let us know. Reach out, give us a call, shoot us an email, whatever we can do to help you and support you. That's what we're here for.
Sounds good. Thanks for organizing all of us, Kim.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
very much. We really appreciate it.
All right. Anything else before we sign off? All right. Thank you all again very much for your time. Thank you for your willingness to serve. And just a friendly reminder to, once we hang up here, to log into Smarter Select real quick and make sure you have access before we get started. All right. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank
Good
Thank
night.
you,
Well,
Kim. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
And Kim?
Yes, ma'am.